213 Teachings of Vajrapāṇi. Teachings of Vajrapāṇi. D. Collapsing the false cave of hope and fear. On one occasion when I encountered the glorious Vajrapāṇi in a pure vision of clear light, I asked him, O Jina, great Vajradhara, is so-called Buddhahood something I awaken to within myself, or do I need to go elsewhere to become enlightened? He replied, Behold, fortunate son of the family, if you think that so-called Buddhas are people who live in a vast realm, noble individuals of fine and flawless countenance, peaceful and cooling, clear and free of blemishes, handsome and attractive, consider, who are the parents. If they were born from mothers, they would fall to the extreme of birth. If they dwell somewhere, they would fall to the extreme of having a permanent location. If they were to cease to exist, they would fall to the nihilistic extreme of disappearing. In short, nothing that has a self-sustaining, truly existent nature of arising, ceasing, and remaining has a mode of existence free of the two extremes. These appearances that seem to arise and cease are nothing more than imputations. Moreover, if you reify that which is authentically enlightened, you will bind yourself. If there is a real difference between the ultimate natures of samsara and nirvana, then references to the equal mode of existence of mundane existence and the peace of nirvana are nothing more than empty words. Many people, clinging to nirvana as substantially existent, fall into the trap of hope and fear. There are many accounts of the enjoyments in the pure realms, but if you think of their vast qualities and reify them, that still constitutes grasping at the identities of phenomena. However you name them, in reality, viewing the Tathagatas as being eternal and truly existent is nothing more than viewing them as identities of persons. On another occasion when I directly encountered the Kaya of pristine awareness, the glorious Vajrapāṇi, in the nature of a pure vision of clear light, I asked him, O Jina, great Vajradhara, is so-called Buddhahood something I awaken to within my own ground as Samantabhadra, or do I need to travel from one place to another to become enlightened? Which of these two alternatives is true? He replied, Behold, fortunate son of the family, if you think that so-called Buddhas are people who live in a vast realm, noble kings of fine and flawless countenance, who are peaceful in that they calm discursive thoughts, cooling in that they are free of the burning heat of mental afflictions, clear and free of blemishes, and handsome and attractive, consider, who are the parents of these Buddhas. If they were born from fathers and mothers, they would fall to the extreme of birth. If you think they dwell somewhere, they would fall to the extreme of eternalism. If they were to be eternally terminated, they would fall to the extreme of nihilism. Thus, due to being bound and limited by the three faults of birth, cessation, and abiding, they would definitely have to be sentient beings. Likewise, if vast, physical worlds and multitudes of sentient inhabitants were instances of pure realms, these realms would be objects of grasping at the identities of phenomena, and the bodies of these corporeal Buddhas would be identities of persons. If they did not transcend the two types of grasping at the identities of persons and of phenomena, they would be reduced to the status of sentient beings. If you think a Buddha has eyes, he would also have visual consciousness. As soon as visual consciousness is established, the emergence of visual appearances is inevitable. They are known as the objects apprehended by the eyes. Once such objects are established, subtle conceptual states of mind that closely hold to forms inevitably arise. These are the mental states of visual apprehension. The dualistic conceptualization of the apprehender and the apprehended is called mind, and anyone who has a mind is known as a sentient being. Likewise, if you think a Buddha has ears, he must have auditory consciousness as well as sounds. If you think he has a nose, he must have olfactory consciousness as well as smells. If you think he has a tongue, he must have gustatory consciousness as well as tastes. If you think he has a body, he must have tactile consciousness as well as tactile sensations. And all these would be their apprehended objects. The assemblies of concepts closely holding these objects are the mental states that apprehend them. As before, whoever has a mind is called a sentient being. If you think that such a substantially existent Buddha has eyes, he must also have visual consciousness. If the eyes, visual faculties, together with visual consciousness, are established, the emergence of visual appearances is inevitable. As soon as visual appearances emerge, they are objects apprehended by the eyes. Once such objects are established, subtle conceptual states of mind that closely hold to forms inevitably arise. These are the mental states of visual apprehension. Whoever has a mind is known as a sentient being. If you think that such a substantially existent Buddha has ears, he must also have auditory consciousness. If the ears, together with auditory consciousness, are established, the emergence of auditory appearances is inevitable. As soon as auditory appearances emerge, they are objects apprehended by the ears. Once such objects are established, subtle conceptual states of mind that closely hold to sounds inevitably arise. These are the mental states of auditory apprehension. Whoever has a mind is known as a sentient being. If you think that such a substantially existent Buddha has a nose, he must also have olfactory consciousness. If the nose, together with olfactory consciousness, is established, the emergence of olfactory appearances is inevitable. As soon as olfactory appearances emerge, they are objects apprehended by the nose. Once such objects are established, subtle conceptual states of mind that closely hold to smells inevitably arise. These are the mental states of olfactory apprehension. Whoever has a mind is known as a sentient being. If you think that such a substantially existent Buddha has a tongue, he must also have gustatory consciousness. If the tongue, together with gustatory consciousness, is established, the emergence of gustatory appearances is inevitable. As soon as gustatory appearances emerge, they are objects apprehended by the tongue. Once such objects are established, subtle conceptual states of mind that closely hold to tastes inevitably arise. These are the mental states of gustatory apprehension. Whoever has a mind is known as a sentient being. If you think that such a substantially existent Buddha has a body, he must also have tactile consciousness. If the body, together with tactile consciousness, is established, the emergence of tactile appearances is inevitable. As soon as tactile appearances emerge, they are objects apprehended by the body. Once such objects are established, subtle conceptual states of mind that closely hold to tactile sensations inevitably arise. These are the mental states of tactile apprehension. Whoever has a mind is known as a sentient being. Regarding so-called Buddhas, if it were possible for there to be Buddhas who did not transcend dualistic grasping, the qualities could also be transferred to sentient beings, just like the qualities of one human being can be transferred to another. If you think Buddhas teach Dharma to others, then the teachers would appear as selves, the Dharma would appear as the teaching, and those who are taught would appear as sentient beings, and if Buddhas were apprehended as such, they would not have even a sesame seed's worth of qualities superior to those of sentient beings. So they would all be sentient beings. If you think a Buddha has a pleasant environment, a beautiful form, fine companions, great enjoyments and pleasures, and no anger or attachment, and that these are the exceptional qualities of a Buddha, then a Buddha would be no better than a god of the form realm. So such a Buddha would not be anything more than a sentient being either. Therefore, Buddhas must be of such a nature that they transcend dualistic grasping. Otherwise, if it were possible for Buddhas to exist autonomously, the qualities could be transferred to sentient beings, like those of one human being can be transferred to another. There is no way that the qualities of a Buddha can be transferred to the midstream of a sentient being. If you think that Buddhas are so called because they are teachers of Dharma to others, then the teachers would appear as selves, the Dharma would appear as the teaching, and those who are taught would appear as sentient beings. If Buddhas were apprehended as such, they would not have even a sesame seed's worth of qualities superior to those of sentient beings. So all Buddhas would be sentient beings. If you think a Buddha has a pleasant environment, a beautiful form, fine companions, great enjoyments and pleasures, and no anger or attachment, and that these are the exceptional qualities of a Buddha, then a Buddha would be no better than a god of the form realm. So such a Buddha would not be anything more than a sentient being either. In terms of the definitive meaning, your own ground, Samantabhadra, is called the Shugatas of the three times. Ultimately, a Buddha has never come into the world or taught Dharma. Many of the Tantras, oral transmissions, and pith instructions clearly explain how the self-appearing teacher manifests to disciples themselves. Observe and realize this point. Therefore, that which is called Buddha, your own ground, Samantabhadra, has never been deluded in the past, it does not dwell in delusion in the present, and it will never be deluded in the future. The Shugatas of the three times are called Buddhas. An autonomously existent Buddha has never come to the world from some other realm, nor has he taught Dharma. This is stated in many tantras, oral transmissions, and pith instructions. As it is stated in the Diamond Cutter Sutra, Vajrachedika Sutra. Those people who see me as form, or know me as sound, have entered a false path. Those people do not see me. The self-appearing teacher manifests to disciples themselves, so observe and realize how an autonomously existent Buddha does not exist anywhere else. To determine the nature of samsara. Furthermore, it is incorrect to think that there are other kinds of realms of samsara that are established as existent, and that many sentient beings migrate from one of those places to another and successively experience joys and sorrows. If the appearance of your previous body being discarded were true, whence would you obtain your body in the intermediate period? If sentient beings these days can die merely from wounds, from burns on their arms and legs, or from cold wind on a single winter's day, then when a body is formed that experiences the heat and cold of hell realms, why doesn't it die even though it has been boiled and burned for a long time? Likewise, if death can occur nowadays due to starvation for only a few months or even days, why don't sentient beings in the Preta realms perish due to being starved for eons? Therefore, all sentient beings in the 6 states of existence, as well as those in the intermediate period, manifest merely like appearances in a dream, but apart from that, they are empty and are not established as real. They are deluded due to obsessively grasping at the true existence of things that have no objective existence. Samsara is like a jar with a trapped bee that flies sometimes to the top, sometimes to the bottom, and sometimes to the midsection, but never escapes the jar. Likewise, these 3 realms do not transcend samsara. You are utterly mistaken if you think that they are established as the environments and sentient beings of the 6 states of existence in the 3 realms, that many beings migrate to those places, and that while roving from one to another they definitely experience joys and sorrows. If your previous body were discarded, whence would you obtain a body in the intermediate period? If your body in the intermediate period were discarded, whence would you obtain a body that experiences the heat and cold of the hell realms? For instance, when you are born in the resuscitating hell, the entire ground is molten metal, all the mountains are surrounded by molten metal, and all activities resound with the noise of the messengers of the Lord of death, killing and maiming. Many hell beings are gathered there, and when they see each other, like seeing a crippled enemy, they maim and kill one another. Then, as soon as a voice from the sky declares, "Be resuscitated," they are restored. If such is the case, what were the causes and conditions from which they arose? Apart from their mere appearances, they do not truly exist. This is as Jinaputra Santadeva wrote. Who created the floor of heated iron? Whence arose those billowing flames? The sage declared that all of this has arisen from the evil mind. If you still maintain that the hell realms, suffering, and so forth are autonomously existent, consider that once a body is formed that experiences the heat and cold of hell, it doesn't die as a result of being boiled, burned, and maimed. Yet if the mere wounds and burns on the feet and arms of the sentient beings nowadays exist from their own side as causes of death, why doesn't death result from being boiled, burned, and maimed in hell for eons? Likewise, if death is caused by a cold wind on a single winter's day, why don't beings die after they have been born in a cold hell and have suffered from cold for eons? If beings nowadays can die from starvation after just a few months or weeks, why don't pretas die if they suffer from hunger and thirst for eons? It follows that these two are incompatible. Therefore, all sentient beings in the 6 states of existence, as well as those in the intermediate period, arise like appearances in last night's dream. From the very moment they appear, they are non-existent and are not established as real. Just by the fact of their appearing, they are empty and bear no objective existence. Beings are deluded due to obsessively grasping at the true existence. If you determine the nature of delusive appearances in that way and realize them as not truly existent, as empty, and as having no objective existence, you have dredged samsara from its depths. If you decisively understand that Buddhas do not exist apart from your own ground and you acquire confidence within yourself, you will actually attain what is called the natural liberation of a multitude of Buddhas. Thus, all delusive appearances and deluded grasping are not truly existent and are of the nature of the one great emptiness. They are of one taste in the nature of the one great emptiness, and they are the great uniform pervasiveness of non-objectivity. If you determine this by realizing it, you will dredge samsara from its depths. Why? Because all the appearances in the 3 realms of samsara are none other than the deluded thoughts of a single sentient being. For example, although birth, movement, and appearances in a dream seem to be different, as soon as the person wakes from sleep, they all fundamentally vanish. Likewise, when a single sentient being becomes a Buddha, one would have to assert that all sentient beings become Buddhas. In this regard, there are the general assertion of the philosophical schools and the manner of realization of yogins. According to the former, one must assert that even if the private appearances to an individual cease for that person's mind, the delusive mode of appearances in general is not destroyed. But this is taught merely as a provisional meaning in order to avoid the false conclusion that there would subsequently be no point in working for the sake of sentient beings. According to the latter, all appearances of the phenomena of samsara and nirvana are none other than the 8 gateways of spontaneous actualization. When you become a Buddha, the 8 gateways dissolve into their own inner luminosity, and you abide as the youthful Vaskaya. At that time, outward appearances are not established as being different, just as dreams implode by waking from sleep. If you think that yogins assert this from their own side, but different modes of appearances exist in the midstreams of others, then the mode of existence of equality, in which all of samsara and nirvana is realized as being none other than your own appearances, would be false, for there would be the duality of purity and impurity. Therefore, from the perspective of the essential nature, ultimate reality, you must know that there is no one who is not a Buddha, for everything is the self-appearance of pristine awareness. From the perspective of relative truth, however things are regarded, there is no inconsistency in the being simply dependently related events. In point of fact, if you wish to realize the equality of samsara and nirvana, do not think that so-called Buddhas exist in some other realm. The essential nature of your own ground, non-conceptual primordial consciousness, has never been deluded in the past, it does not dwell in delusion in the present, and it will never be deluded in the future. Due to the manifestation of your own ground, Samantabhadra, you will decisively know that no autonomous Buddhas exist anywhere else. Once pristine awareness has acquired its own confidence, by itself, in itself, a multitude of Buddhas naturally achieve their own self-liberation. O Lord of Space, omnipresent Vajra, determine that all the phenomena of samsara and nirvana are non-existent and empty, and realize the nature of non-existence. Saying this, he disappeared.